Welcome back. It's time now for Media Watch, and for that I'm joined by James Creedon. Hello, James.
Good evening, Annette.
Now, what about this prize money, James? I imagine we're talking, of course, about the fact that, let me start.
We'll get to the prize money.
We'll get to the prize money. I'm looking at the wrong question
Yes.
here. Let me start by
Yes.
talking about the EU winning the Nobel Peace Prize. There's
Yes.
been a lot of reaction on social media, both for and against. I mean, certainly from the Eurosceptics, there's been a lot of guffaws and laughter, hasn't there?
There has, across the board, Annette, as you say, it's been very divergent. And I asked on Facebook and Twitter for people to send in their reactions, and indeed it reflects that diversity of opinion. So just first reaction there from Charles van de Boguarde: an amazing statement in difficult times to give the Nobel to the EU, and a reminder to everyone that this political construction is unique in the history of mankind. That was his point of view. Our own Oliver Farry actually got in on the conversation here. Of course, the EU has thankfully avoided the military dictatorships that have plagued Latin America. So he was making a comparison to Latin America, which doesn't have any overarching political structure. But it does show that formal peace in itself is not all that great a thing to crow about. Brazil can boast never having gone to war with another country in its 190-year history. I think that is an interesting point. Why doesn't the Nobel go to Brazil? Another comment here from Martina Spanjolka: on my way from Brussels to Paris in a high-speed train, she says, I gaze out the window at the quiet plains on which thousands of young Europeans slaughtered each other less than 100 years ago. So I suppose a marker to, or a sign of the times, in fact, and how much perhaps European construction might have contributed to peace in Europe. Another comment she makes further up: we might not have a phone number, but we have a Nobel Peace Prize up yours, Henry. And that's a reference to Henry Kissinger, who himself got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973. And this comment on Twitter by a Greek journalist and human rights activist says the Nobel Prize for Peace is a joke, should be abolished, considering the people who have won it. And I presume he might be thinking about Henry Kissinger and perhaps even Barack Obama, people who don't just symbolize peace, that's for sure. They might have at some point in their careers made peaceful gestures, but do they 100% deserve a peace prize?
Well, now let's get back to the question I really did want to ask at the beginning. And I'm talking about the prize money, that €1 million check.
That's right. The €1 million question, right?
That's right. Who gets it, basically? And I bet there's been many comments, given the fact that Europe is, of course, undergoing a financial crisis.
I think this is my favourite one, Annette. Wonder if the EU will take the Peace Prize money, quit their job and just travel Europe for a year to find themselves.
How about they give the money to us and we can take a year off and we can travel Europe to
We'll split it, Annette, and we can kind of do a very deluxe interrail. How does that sound? This person saying, as the EU won the Nobel Prize, every citizen should expect a fair share, and somebody who actually got the calculator out and determined that it's less than 0.002 of a cent for each citizen. And clearly, this comment being made by Palantis: good. Now throw the prize money down the Greek endless debt pit. So obviously people making a parallel to Europe's difficulties, economic difficulties at the moment. You might even ask the question, is that what was behind the motivation for giving the prize to the EU? Was there a political motivation? Some would say there was. And this is a cartoon that I think reflects that. The Nobel Peace Prize for the European Union. And you've got a little speech bubble there coming out of a European office. Well, the economic Nobel perhaps we'll get that next time, or we'll just forget about the Nobel Prize for economics, because I think Europe probably wouldn't win that one right now.
I think they're probably getting a phone call from the European Stability Mechanism Fund saying all donations are warmly welcomed.
Send the check this way.
Now, there are also comments finding it very strange that it's been given to a bloc as such.
Yes.
As opposed to an individual.
That's right. Lots of comments reflecting kind of some stupefaction at that. This from an Irish Twitter user: this Nobel Prize award is going right on my CV after Time Magazine Person of the Year 2006. So as an EU citizen, he thinks that he can stick that on his CV. The Time 2006 Person of the Year, in fact, was you. So it was another one of these gimmicks, saying that because of the information age, we're all persons of the year. And another comment that I got on Facebook asking for people to send their comments in was, I have the impression that they couldn't find any one person to give it to. Perhaps soon the world will get the Nobel Peace Prize. That's from Mo Banani. So after the EU, why not the world.
Now, what about European journalists and their reactions?
All right, well, I thought this was interesting. If I can pull it up here. This was Press Europe did a little press review, which helped me out. It meant I didn't have to scour through the papers. And just to give you a sense of what they were saying, or some of the reactions they picked up on Süddeutsche Zeitung, the Munich-based paper, they said a hodgepodge of states whose biggest project, the monetary union, is on the brink of collapse. The Nobel Committee needs to think about their long-term credibility. They also got a piece for they looked at El País, who said it was unexpected, in particular given Norway's refusal to join the EU club. And finally, RTP, that's the Portuguese state broadcaster. The prize couldn't come at a better time for governments, leaders, and European institutions, so they may think again on how to avoid a collapse of the euro. The Daily Telegraph, I had a little look at them as well, and not surprisingly from a massively Eurosceptic paper, they say that it's beyond parody, and further down the caption on the photo is there are words to describe what's going on across Europe, but peaceful isn't one of them. And indeed, I did see a lot of people making comments about even the political situation, the economic policy of the European Central Bank, for example, and its austerity. This isn't what the Daily Telegraph is saying, by the way, but I did see these comments. A form of violence in itself, in that in the austerity being meted out to Spain, Portugal, well, soon perhaps Spain, Portugal, Greece and Ireland. And we'll finish, Annette, with this cartoon from Plantu, who is the cartoonist for Le Monde. I think it reflects, I think, those who are in favour of the decision. So I'll do a little zoom in it here. You can see this was from 2002, so going back 10 years. And you can see up at the top, you've got, this is going back to Roman times, I suppose. A lot of violence. This would be probably Napoleonic Europe. Violence again. World War II under Hitler. Violence again. And here you have Europeans going to the polls. So that was Plantu's reflection, or I suppose his cartoon impression of Europe or the EU back in 2002. And he shared that on his Facebook page today, I suppose, a sign that Plantu, in any case, is in favour of the Nobel Committee's decision.
I think while some of us are raising eyebrows, it is an extraordinary experiment when you think of what the world looked like 60 years ago. It's very different these days in this part of the world.
Certainly.
James Creedon, pleasure as always. And it's time now for web news. Syrian activists are taking their fight to cyberspace, launching an online campaign calling on protesters from different ethnic groups to unite.